I see a Cybertruck and it like ruins my day.
Really?
I think it's a social experiment.
Yes, me too.
To see what people will buy.
And they'll buy it.
Yes.
Clearly.
I don't think it's a truck. What qualifies a truck?
It's called a truck. It's a truck.
It's not every day you call someone a world champion and also a newcomer. But Monica Lieving is exactly that. In her rookie year, she burst on the world long drive scene, claimed the world championship, and left everyone wondering, where did she come from? On today's episode, we dive into the mind of this rising star as Monica talks about life after the win, her unapologetic love for her cat Jerry, and what success really means in a world of big swings and even bigger personalities. This is Out of Bounds with Monica Lieving.
Here at One Stop Power Shop, you've been coming here and putting in the work. It was really cool to see your training here yesterday and like what goes into it. This is one of the things that I noticed kind of in competitive sports when I was playing. I almost got like too hyped up, too anxious, too worked up.
Yeah.
So how do you control that? Because it can be completely beneficial. It can make you better and more competitive and more powerful. But if it goes a little bit too far over the line, it's a very fine line. So how do you manage that?
It is a fine line because for me, I'm someone where I can get myself really pumped up really fast. I can move my heart rate up really fast. But that's something that as I've gone through long drive and gotten more experience, I've realized I have to actually control more than I thought.
Yeah.
This last year was more difficult because I was trying to rein it in a little bit more, but I think it made it a little bit harder for me to then get pumped up when I needed to, rather than just staying at a high level the whole time like I did last year, like just a constant state of adrenaline and like ready to go. But that's not sustainable from an energy standpoint, I realized. So that was kind of what this year was for me, was playing with that and really figuring out like how to pull into it and tap into it when it's needed the most and conserve my energy when it's not as needed.
I mean, let's start with the 2023 season coming in there. You went in Hobe Sound to kick things off, kind of cruise along the way. Like there were eyes on you, but that pressure didn't exist the same way. So how did it feel throughout that first season heading into the World Championships?
How it felt for me in my rookie season was I think I just went through the season with not necessarily no expectations, but I was just so happy to be competing, and I was really excited to see the progress that I was making with my speed and my distance. And I think when you're in the mindset of you have really big goals, but they're not necessarily, you're not limiting yourself to a specific goal, especially in your first season doing something, I do think it allows you to just have, more open-ended possibility for how things can happen. And I know I said this last year when you interviewed me, was that every event that I did in 2023, I did something that surprised me.
Yeah.
And I still do have that today. And I think that that's the fun part because, in the first event of the year in Mesquite, I surprised myself because I had my fastest ball speed ever in my very last ball against Sandra to win. And, that was something that I wasn't expecting. I was just channeling my emotions, as we said, and just enjoying it and having fun. And that was the result. And that wasn't even, in my head to be reaching for necessarily. So that just kind of comes with, keeping an open mind and staying open to possibility and competition and not, narrowing your mindset too much on the outcome.
So in that 2023 World Championship, you go up against Phyllis, who's a legend in the sport, and she goes OB, and then you really just have to put one in play. That was such a memorable moment. Like, I still remember kind of seeing it. A lot of fun when you realize, like, you could see the excitement in your eyes.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Tell me about that feeling.
Yeah. So that was such an interesting experience because, a lot of people who don't watch long drive as much, all they see is that I won because she hit OB. And they see that my drive was 288 yards. And that's obviously not a reflection of how far I can hit the ball. But the beauty behind the whole situation is in that moment, I was an athlete that did what they needed to do to win a championship belt. What I could have done was get really cocky and try to put up a PR, try to go as fast as I can, hit it as far as I can to win my first world championship. I could have very well gone OB. And if you know Phyllis Meddy, I don't want her to hit another ball.
Right.
So I'm not also going to go, 6 balls OB and then we're both hitting again. No way. So I just wanted to get one in play. And a lot of people say that I go too fast, but it works for me, and it clearly worked for me. So, yeah.
Well, one of the things in this sport that's so crazy, and maybe just a coincidence thing, but how these patterns kind of happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like we saw this year where Mai goes OB and then Phyllis just needs to hit one in and she does that and she wins the world championship. Last year, Sean Johnson loses by 1 yard and then wins by 1 yard in this one. Like you can't
it's
script
wild.
that.
No,
like,
you can't script it. And it's
unbelievable.
It is unbelievable because I'm like, that just shows you how cool the sport is.
Yeah.
Because it's like, these are the storylines that have so much emotion to them because, I can only imagine Phyllis, losing to me by going OB. The frustration from that, I can't even imagine because that's obviously not a reflection of her as a hitter.
Yes.
And then this year being in the flipped-flopped role and being able to be the person that gets the ball in play, it's not as easy as people think, you know? It's like you're standing up there and you're like, oh my gosh, like I just need one ball in play. And as a golfer of any kind, if you ever think that way, you're like, okay, there's water, there's OB. You're like, oh my gosh, your brain starts just jumping around. So I think it shows a lot of skill when somebody can mentally get themselves in a place to just hit a golf shot and remove their ego, remove expectations from other people, and hit the shot that you need to win the title.
So 2024 doesn't go the way that you plan it, but I think now going into my third season, one of the things that I love and has made me fall in love with World Long Drive is following the storylines, right? So it doesn't work out the way that you want it to in 2024, bit of a setback, but that sets you up for the perfect kind of comeback story in 2025. How much do you think about that?
Oh, I think about it a lot. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting place to be. And, I'm not going to lie. After Worlds ended, I didn't pick up a club for about 2 months because I was like, you know what? I was a little burnt out. I needed a little bit of a break. But I think that's exactly what I needed to kind of get myself back in, the zone of being focused on speed training and having fun again. And I think, last year I put a lot of pressure on myself because, coming out and having the rookie season that I did, all eyes are on you, and there's a target on your back, and I like that. But I do think that, it did put a lot of pressure on me on top of working and living my normal life to practice. And I practiced a lot last year. And when you practice a lot and you kind of see almost an inverse, result in your performance, it can get really frustrating. But I think it's about consistency and staying dedicated to the process. And, I took some time to really figure out why I want to compete and what motivates me. And I think that that's the important thing in the off season, and especially during season 2, is remembering why you're doing something and trying to tap into that and remember why. But yeah, I feel way more motivated now, and I'm excited to keep pushing speed because it's fun to me, and I just want to have fun again and remember that this is a really cool platform for me to compete on after college golf and to showcase the skills that deep down I've always had, but I didn't necessarily have the ability or platform to show and tap into. And yeah, I feel way more motivated now.
What was the moment that made you say, I'm going to go full-time into Long Drive?
So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Rewind the tape. Okay. So the way I got into Long Drive was also just a totally random thing that I wasn't expecting. After college, I didn't pick up clubs for about a year. And, I have my whole story on why I didn't do that. But I was working at my old job, and they asked me to play in a scramble. And I was like, all right, a scramble is low pressure, Monica. You can pick up your clubs for the first time. So I did that. And that day I drove a green and I almost hit Andrew Eigner, who is a competitor.
2023 amateur world champion.
Yes. Yep, exactly. And yeah, I almost hit him, and I went up to him to apologize. I felt so bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to hit you. I didn't think I would hit it that far. And he just doesn't even care. And he's like, do you always hit it that far? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Oh my gosh, man, I'm sorry. And he's like, I'd be curious to see some of your numbers in a TrackMan sometime if you're interested. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I didn't see him for another 3 or 4 months. I didn't pick up a club for another 3 to 4 months. We met up at a range in like November. It was cold outside, and he put up the TrackMan to see my numbers, and I hadn't swung since that day. So I was like, this is going to be so embarrassing. Like, I don't know what I think I'm doing right now. I'm about to embarrass myself.
Yeah.
And I was just hitting my normal driver that I compete with. And I had never actually measured my swing speed before. So I didn't know what my club head speed was. I didn't know what my ball speed was. So I also didn't know what was good.
Right.
And so I'm hitting golf balls, and Andrew is just like in awe, and he's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't understand why you're so impressed right now. And I topped out at 116 club head speed that day and 168 ball speed, I think. And he says to me, he's like, I think you could be one of the best women's long drivers in the world. And I'm like rolling my eyes. I'm like, okay, that's so dramatic.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude. And after a couple months, I decided to try it. And one of my first events was the Colorado event, the PLDA event. And I won the round robin with my gamer driver. I had a perfect 1,000 points. And then I lost my first matchup. And I felt kind of defeated because I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, I'm like, I came out, I won all the round robin sets, but, you know, I was so confused on the clubs, and all these girls had these longer clubs that they knew how to hit, and it was so intimidating. But then, you know, I didn't think much else about it. And then I decided I wasn't really going to try it anymore because it kind of just felt like something I didn't really understand. And a couple months later, I get a call from Bobby Peterson. And he calls me and he asks me why I'm not competing. And this is kind of the moment that sort of changed things for me in my whole golf experience and in long drive, because I told him, I'm like, you know, I don't know what clubs to hit. I don't really know like what to do in this sport. And he overnight shipped me a couple long drivers with shafts, heads, and everything to try out. And I'm going to get emotional. He actually convinced me to come to the Utah event, and he actually paid for my flight for me to come to this event, because he told me that he believed I could be really good in the sport. And I had never had a coach just openly show so much belief in me before. And to spend his own money to bring me out to an event just like was one of the kindest things anyone I think has ever done for me in a sport before.
Yeah.
So I fly out to Utah, and I've never hit these long drivers before, and I am like terrified. I'm like, I'm gonna go make divots on the range. Like, this is gonna be so embarrassing. And I ended up winning that event.
Like storybook.
I know. Then, you know, the year ends, WLD comes back and they announce their schedule. I go compete in Mesquite. I win that one. Go compete in Florida. I win that one. And then obviously ended up, you know, winning Worlds. So
I think that goes back to not getting yourself too hyped up about things.
Yes.
Like when you're too specific,
Yes.
it sets up an opportunity for things to go wrong. But if you are like, oh, I'm just here, just step up and compete.
Yep. No, it's so true, because I think the difference between me competing in competitive golf versus long drive is it's an opportunity for me to do things differently. When I was playing competitive golf, I would pick out my outfit the night before. Like, I would lay it out. I would get, you know, I would make sure I picked the right golf balls I wanted with the right number. And I would do so many specific things. And it's like, girl, you got to relax a little.
Yeah.
You got to relax. You need to just go play the sport that you know how to play. I have realized what works for me is not placing so much importance on these things that at the end of the day have nothing to do with my skill or talent or confidence.
Let's go back to your collegiate career. You went to Arkansas State. First off, why Arkansas State?
Yes.
It's just, it seems like an interesting choice.
Yes. So Arkansas State, because I got a scholarship.
Okay.
And
Makes a difference.
very economic girly, you know, I'm like, let me see how cheap I can get college.
Sure.
So I grew up in a small town in Illinois, Geneseo, Illinois, shout out.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't really have a lot of access to like AJGA golf events and the circuit where most college coaches are watching prospective athletes. So I played in a lot of golf events, but they were very local, regional golf events. So I never really had the opportunity to play in those big events that would get college eyes on me. So what I actually did for myself when recruiting for college was I emailed all college coaches myself. I was like 14, 15 years old, and I would personally email all of the coaches that I was potentially considering, you know, being interested in their school. and I would send them stats, and videos of my swing, and I would have a handful of replies. And my eventual college coach said to me, she's like, I will, consider watching you if you can qualify for this national tournament in Florida. So there were state qualifiers in every state to qualify for this event. And so I signed up for the Illinois and the Iowa event. And for the Iowa one, that was the first one I did. My dad and I got up at, I think, 3 in the morning that day. We drove about 4 hours to Iowa, and I had never played the course, didn't do a practice round, and it rained all day, and I won it. And I went by myself to the event in Florida, and she watched me, invited me out for an official visit, and then I eventually got my scholarship.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I had to grind to do just about everything in golf.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you got there, and I think we've talked about it before, but you had some kind of ups and downs in playing golf. What were the challenges that you faced there, and like what kind of kept you going?
Yeah. I felt kind of like I didn't belong, if I'm being honest. A lot of the girls that I competed against or was on a team with had, been raised in the sport from a very young age, played in a lot of highly competitive events. So I kind of felt like a fish out of water, and I felt like I wasn't prepared for that experience. And I kind of got to a place where I kind of had imposter syndrome. I'm like, why am I here? Do I even belong here? Am I even good enough to be here? And obviously I was there, but when you're an 18-year-old, although that's a legal adult, you're still very young, and you're still, experiencing the world for the first time. And I just felt very fish out of water. And I started to just have really bad issues with my confidence and my belief in myself and why I was there. And I just felt like I constantly wasn't good enough. And my mentality around golf was really, really struggling. And, something that I think doesn't get talked about enough are the college athletes that have that experience. I think that since I've graduated, I've met a ton of athletes, no matter what sport, who have had a similar experience to me. And, I think it's important for people to remember that 18-year-olds are still really, really young.
Yeah.
If I think about an 18-year-old now, and I'm 26 now, like that's so young. It was a tough adjustment for me because golf was my life and it was my identity, and I tied my entire worth to the sport.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I have grown immensely in is yes, I'm a golfer, but I'm also Monica, who is, a good friend, daughter, sister, who has really cool interests. And I don't tie my worth now to my performance. And I think that that's something when you're young and you've dedicated your whole life to a sport, it's really hard to separate that and compartmentalize.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in the sport of golf talk a lot about people's mental games.
Yep.
And something that was told to me over and over was, Monica, you have so much potential. You have so much talent. It's just your head. It's just your mental game. And I have a very strong opinion now that that's really overlooked in the golf industry in general, is how we talk about people's mental game and the narrative around it. What I think a lot of people don't realize is when you go up to someone who's struggling mentally to have confidence in their craft, in their sport, when you continue to feed into this notion of it being their mind, it makes it worse. It's kind of like when you say, don't think about an elephant. You're going to think about an elephant.
Right.
Well, if you say to me, Monica, it's just your head, it's just your mental game. When I'm 3 under through 4 holes, what do you think I'm going to start saying to myself? It's my mental game.
Yeah.
I got to make sure I don't mess up, because then it will prove it's just my mental game.
Right.
And I think that's something that I have become very cognizant of when I talk to other athletes about mental things is what we talk about, we give power to.
Right.
And that can be positive and negative. It's really good to point out what we need to work on as athletes, but it's really important to not give those issues so much power that it becomes this storyline of, oh, it's just her mental game. It's, it's just his mental game and things like that, because there's so much more to the story. And I think if we talk in a more positive way and like, hey, this is an incredible athlete who's having a very normal reaction to not doing well at something, I think it shifts the narrative and makes it a more approachable thing to work through as an athlete and not create such a big storyline and stigma around the issue of mental game problems.
It's so inspirational. And now if you think about it, hindsight's always 20/20, but there were times that you probably wanted to give up, and now you're sitting here talking about it, and look what you've accomplished in that time. So anyone who's watching, you know, it's just such a good reminder to kind of keep going, because your low point isn't always going to be your low point. There could be a time that you're looking back and you've kind of come to all these conclusions and figured things out, and things become so much more clear down the line.
Yes. And to touch exactly on that, there was a point in time when I was convinced that I was going to quit golf forever. Basically, I had a, issue with my team where I just struggled to qualify for events. We would do on-course qualifiers, and I would, just blow up on the golf course. And it was just something that, again, at the time I had that mental block with because of, the reiterating conversation about having a mental block with it. But that was primarily what happened. So there was this trip I really wanted to go to, this golf tournament I really wanted to go to. I was a junior, and it was over spring break, and it was in Hawaii, because what 20-year-old doesn't want to go to Hawaii to play golf, right? So I was really close in qualifying, and I missed it, and I was devastated. And I went home for spring break, and I said to my dad, I don't want to talk about golf. I don't want to play golf. I don't want to watch golf. I want 8 days of absolutely zero golf, because I feel like I don't want to do this anymore. And to this day, so impressed. Tony Lieving pulled through. He didn't talk about it. We didn't watch it. It was actually incredible, because it was like our life, And I will never forget this. I was leaving to make my 8-hour drive back to Arkansas State. And my dad, he's a little technologically challenged, but he printed me off these pieces of paper, and he hands it to me. And he says, "You don't need to read this now, but please read it when you feel ready." So I'm like, okay. So I didn't read it, and I got back to school, and I opened it, and it was a letter I wrote to myself when I was a freshman in high school about why I loved golf. And I'm getting emotional just talking about it.
I'm getting emotional hearing it.
And, it was so innocent and so full of life and love for the game of golf. And, I sobbed, and I was like, you have to stand back and remember why you do things in the first place, and appreciate how far you have come, because in that moment I'm like, hold on, I did become a Division I golfer. I have done all these things, and I've spent almost all my time here being so hard on myself, convincing myself that I'm not worthy of this spot that I had earned myself, that I went for myself, that I emailed coaches about, that I won the tournament that I needed to get them to even watch me and consider me. And it just brought so much life back into me. And then I started playing the best golf of my life, and then COVID hit. COVID hit, and it ended my golf career.
Yeah.
And that was why I didn't pick up a club for a year until the day I met Andrew.
It looks like the pressure is a common theme. Like, why do you feel you put that pressure on yourself?
That's a really good question, because this is something I try to reflect on and wonder why I do well with it in general. I think because, and you probably saw this last night when I was hitting balls, Bobby goes, "All right, this is your last ball, best ball of my session."
And then 9 other best balls.
And I'm like, okay, one more.
Yeah.
And, I think there's something to be said about how it silences your mind. It's the equivalent of, pulling your head out of your ass.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's when you sit there and you remove all of the noise, and you're like, okay, my one job is to look at this golf ball, hit it with intent, and worry about nothing else. It doesn't matter what I'm working on. It doesn't matter how my last shot was. It doesn't matter what this one even is. What matters is my intent and my, dedication to this present moment. I think it brings you to a really present state of not worrying about the past, the future, all these other things. It just brings you present. And I think that's why I like pressure, because I've always loved, I love sports. I love Cinderella stories. I love underdog stories. And I totally fed myself that story in 2023. I'm like, man, this underdog, she's just going to wreak havoc. And I did. And I think that storyline is something that I just love. And I think that's the fun part of sports is, coming back from bad things and not proving other people wrong, but proving yourself right. that you know you have something within you that you can accomplish. It's not about other people, it's about you. And I think that's what I do well, is I'm good at making myself the main character of my story.
Let's talk about those numbers that you were putting up yesterday.
Yes.
What were we seeing, 188?
Yeah, so I got up to 184.9 yesterday. Okay. And 126 club head speed. Around 127 would probably produce 190 ball speed. So to be that close is a little sickening, but it's also the fun part.
Bobby was telling us the fastest recorded by a woman was 194. Can you imagine, hitting that peak? Is that something that you set your sights on?
Oh yeah, I imagine it all the time.
Yeah.
I envision it all the time. Yeah. Like when I listen to my music, when I'm warming up, when I am on an airplane, I mean, I am a huge visualizer, and I've envisioned myself hitting 190, I mean, at this point, hundreds of times. Yeah. And then I've also envisioned myself breaking the world record, because I believe I can. And who knows how long it'll take? I don't know. Who knows? But I do believe I have what it takes, and I think that's like the bare minimum, right? As long as you believe you can, it's not impossible. So
there are people out there who may not know the training that goes into this. So exactly how much work do you have to put in, and what does your training schedule look like in the off season, or even when you're in season?
I'm just hitting the golf ball, and I'm trying to do that more this off season, is give myself the enjoyment of just hitting the golf ball. Like, I know now that I can win. I know that I have what it takes. Like, girl, take a chill pill and just hit the golf ball.
Take a chill pill. We could all
take
ourselves a chill pill sometime. How do you balance the training with being a real estate agent and having your mind focused on that and making a living at the same time? Like, it's got to be pretty tough.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know how difficult it is to train aggressively for long drive, all while trying to, pay your bills and keep your career moving forward and, put food on the table. So I think it also does show, though, the beauty and how much people love this sport.
Right.
Because we wouldn't do it if we didn't love it.
Is there anyone in the sport that you like to beat the most? Do you have one name?
I mean, to be clear, I'm an athlete, so I like beating everyone.
Okay, sure. Yes.
But, there's certainly people that, I would say, a handful of them. Obviously, one is going to be, two will be Phyllis and Sandra.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to watch them on TV.
Yeah.
I'm competitive. To be able to beat people that I used to watch on TV, like, come on.
Yeah.
I think them two, and then good old Mai.
Yeah.
Mai. I love her to death.
And it's fun to watch you, too. Like, I think she posted a story of you hitting yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? So you're supporting each other on the side, but it's turning into one of the best rivalries in the sport.
I know. And it's so funny, because it's the worst thing is when someone is really talented and they're nice.
Yes. For sure.
And I'm like, gosh darn it, Mai. Like, why do you have to be so nice? But no, I adore her, and she's an incredible athlete, an incredible person. And I think we are very similar in a lot of ways. And so, anytime we're matched up, I love being matched up against Mai.
So it's a very welcoming community in World Long Drive. Like you said before, everyone's kind of supporting one another. There's an opportunity for a lot of women in this sport to kind of come up through collegiate golf and start competing. Like, we need to see more of that.
Yeah.
So what would you say to girls out there who are, playing NCAA golf right now that could be the next superstars that are up on that stage?
I think the thing that I would say is, if you hear my story, the thing to take away from it is I had no idea I was going to be a long driver. I had no idea I was as fast as I was, and you don't even have to start that fast to get to a really highly competitive level. I mean, it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to get there, but if you have good foundational golf skills, that is a huge help when trying to get yourself faster. And I think what I would say to women who, maybe want to try the sport is just start trying it. Just start hitting golf balls as fast as you can. I think it's something that I really hope to see grow, because I've found a lot of love and joy brought back into my life by competing in something again. I'm a competitor at heart, and I never expected to have an outlet like this, at this stage of my life. And to have it has changed my life and my confidence. And, to have that as an adult is so much fun. Golf is still a predominantly male, sport, and same with long drive, and being able to go up there and, hit it faster and further than PGA Tour pros is pretty darn cool. And I know there are more women that can do it because I exist, and I had no clue. So I know that there are women out there who are going to start showing up and going to be probably people like me, you know, we have women out there who are hitting 180 plus ball speed. That is like 10 miles per hour faster than the average PGA Tour pro.
Yeah.
And I just think that that is so incredible. And, you know, women's sports are growing exponentially. And I just think long drive is such a good crossover of, you know, predominantly male sport being golf, and then also adding power to it, and just seeing the women that compete. Like, I'm in awe of all of them. So,
yeah, it's fun to watch the people that have just come into it that are kind of making noise. Your name that comes to mind, Sonia Knabel from Germany is another one that just started, and look, she's already top 4 in the world, the World Championships. So it's impressive. Let's talk about stuff other than golf.
Okay.
Like, aside from golf and real estate, what goes on in the life of Monica? What are your hobbies? What do you collect?
You know, I like anything outside, and so something I collect is national park pins.
Yeah.
I love going to national parks, and I have this little bulletin board where I pin all of my little, like, trinkets and stuff from my travels on a bulletin board. And it just has like ridiculous stuff that is like cool to me. Like I will save like coffee sleeves with the like location of the coffee shop. Again, I'm strange. I just think it's cool. And you know, I just like collecting little things from my travels and putting it all up on a board to show like a mosaic of where my life has gone. And I just find it super fun. So national park pins. And I also have this goal to make like a really cool collage of all the national park maps. So I keep every national park map that I go to.
Okay.
So kind of nerdy, but it's a long-term goal that I'm
not
committing
nerdy
to.
At all.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday night. You're home. No long drive. What are you doing?
Okay. Saturday night, no long drive. You guys are just going to be so impressed by this. I hope you know. Okay. So what's happening is I've made a really nice home-cooked meal. We'll say like, you know, kind of older person time frame, like 5:30. And I've made like a nice pasta. I'm drinking a glass of red wine, and then I'm listening to like some jazz music, and then
not like Bring Me the Horizon.
No, believe it or not, she's listening to Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
And I'm making some nice pasta, you know, just like really enjoying my time alone. And I sit on the couch, I cuddle up with my adorable cat Jerry. He's my baby. Yes, cat lady, I know. I've popped open a book, you know, I'm probably reading like a fantasy series and cuddling my cat, and then eventually I'll probably like make myself a cup of tea, some chamomile, and then I'm probably asleep by like 9 o'clock.
On a Saturday night?
On a Saturday night. Perfect. And then my HRV on my Whoop is like sensational the next morning. I can get up, get my groceries, go work out.
Okay, you've got a Whoop. I've got an Apple Watch. I had that for a little bit. I am obsessed.
Are you?
I don't know what it is, but it turns your fitness into like a game.
I have a problem.
Do you?
I'm competitive. I literally compete with myself on sleep scores.
Okay.
I get so amped about sleep score. Oh my gosh, no. So I literally like this Whoop is amazing, but it has also been the death of me, because I'm like, okay, how good can we make my sleep score tonight? Like, I'm not drinking, I'm having tea before bed, I'm taking my magnesium, I'm reading, no blue light. How good can my sleep score be? And then if it's like not good, I'm like, why did I do any of that?
I need to tap into the sleep score a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
But we were here till pretty late last night, and my rings weren't closed.
Okay.
I had to go to the gym.
Oh yeah, you had like how many days straight of rings being closed?
I think I'm on a streak of like 80 around
okay, that's
80
actually insane.
Maybe 75.
Okay, I will take some of that. I will take some of that. You take my sleep score.
Okay.
Together, we have a perfect recovery. What's super embarrassing for me is like, I know now if I have a single drop of alcohol, my recovery goes into the orange.
Really?
Yeah. And so now I'm like, no, guys, can't drink. I need a green recovery tomorrow.
Anything else? Oh, this has been great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, we'll have to pick this up next long drive season 2 and kind of do a check-in and you know, see what kind of storylines emerge. But
awesome.
Obviously a ton of fun to chat. I was excited to chat with you because we've been talking through the past couple of seasons, I think, and some you know, storylines have come up too. So
yeah, cool. Hi Jerry, I love you. Mama loves you.
That was great.